Welcome to the Church Answers Podcast. My name is Tom Rayner. We are going to look at a question that you at least are asking to yourself on occasion, if not frequently. How do you lead members who won't change? I mean, you've had those members, right? Just the mere thought of doing something differently than the church is doing right now sends them into some type of hysteria. That may be an exaggeration, but it does send them into this is why do we need change? So I get it. I get it. We're going to be talking about how do you lead church members? How do you lead members who won't change? Thank you, Belay. Belay Solutions is an incredible organization that provides for you people who will come alongside you like an executive assistant or a bookkeeper or others who will take things off your plate so that you can do the things that provide you energy, that gives you the things that you want to focus on, that helps you to accomplish your big goals of personal and professional development. Well, as I've said on all of these episodes, I think Church Answers has trusted Belay since our inception, and we continue to do so. I want to recommend to you their ebook. If you haven't downloaded it already, it is called Delegate to Elevate. Download that for free by going to the show notes or by simply going to belaysolutions.com/Tom Rayner. That is THOMRAINER, belaysolutions.com/Tom Rayner. Okay, the question any leader asks about any organization, but particularly pastors and staff of churches. How do you lead members who won't change? How do you lead members who won't change? Okay, I may be stating the obvious here, but the first thing I would just simply say is pray for them and pray about the situation. Never, ever, ever underestimate the power of prayer. Never think for one moment that you shouldn't be praying about something because it's inconsequential. Nothing that is on your heart is inconsequential to God. Pray about the situation and pray for that person. And I can hear you right now. You don't know how many times I prayed for that person, Tom. I get it. Don't stop. Some prayers are slower being answered, but don't stop praying for that person who won't change. Next, remember that relationships are always first. This is not original with me, but it came from a friend. He said, 95% of all problems can be solved at breakfast at Cracker Barrel. you may not know what a Cracker Barrel is. I love Cracker Barrel restaurants. It's part store, part country store, and part just old-fashioned food. I love their breakfast. This isn't a sponsorship for Cracker Barrel, but I love to go there. This friend said, I would meet with people at 7:00, and sometimes there would be some of the toughest people to change, especially when he was a pastor. And he said we'd have a breakfast and we'd talk things out. In other words, he was developing a relationship. And instead of trying to force somebody to do something without getting to know them, develop a relationship. It may not be Cracker Barrel breakfast, but you know what I mean. It may be a coffee shop. It may be some place where the two of you can get away and just talk about these things that may be on both of your hearts. And that just brings us to the next point. Listen to them. Really listen to them. You may be surprised at their perspective. The perspective that you have about these recalcitrant people who are stubborn, obstinate, and getting in the way of your progress and the church's progress is that they're stubborn, recalcitrant, and obstinate. And they might be, and they usually are. But there's usually a story behind the story. There's something that may just grab your heart the moment you hear them talk about it. Take a chance to listen to them. Don't just presume that negative people are negative at heart. Get to their heart. Listen to them. Have this opportunity to just sit down and to hear their side of the story. I can tell you one person who we were talking about. I was consulting, helping a church move from pews to chairs. It was the right decision for that church for a lot of reasons that were not necessarily relevant to this podcast. And the pastor said, we have one leader in our church is just saying he will not let this happen. I mean, pews to chairs. I said, do you know why? He said, well, he's always that way. I said, well, can you just spend some time with him? I suggest they go get coffee or go for a meal. He did. Pastor came back and he said, you know what? I don't think I convinced him to change, but I listened to him. And he told me about where he and his wife were married in this church and the people who sat in specific pews for that wedding. And he told me about his wife's funeral when he became a widower and where they were sitting. And he said those pews have sacred memories for him. And taking out those pews for him is like ripping those memories out. And he said, we're going to have to move forward, but now I have a clear understanding of why he is the way that he is. And you know what I heard from that pastor? Eventually he came around and he said, I know it's not the pews, but it was their presence. And I'm okay. Let's move forward. They don't always end that way, but that was an incredible story of a pastor who decided to let the time be a time of listening. So listen to them. So first pray, develop a relationship, listen with them. And quite frankly, at some point, you don't have to let the obstacle become the total focus of your attention. Sometimes the metaphor we use is a squeaky wheel getting oiled. You know what I'm talking about. In most organizations, churches particularly, we give an inordinate amount of attention to the negative. We want the negative to subside. People who are positive, well, we should be giving them more attention, but we often give too much of our focus to the negative. And my admonition for you here is, after you have prayed, after you have attempted to develop a relationship, after you have listened, if it is the right decision to move forward despite the objection of this person who does not want change, you are going to have to do it anyway. You know the risk. The risk is that person may leave. The risk is that person may take some people with him or her when they leave. The risk is there may be something posted on social media that will say something derogatory about you or your church. You know that. But when you've done everything that you can, ultimately, if it is the right decision, you have to just say, I am not going to let the obstacle be the focus of my attention. And then what do? You move on. You move on with the certainty that as far as you can know, this was the will of God. You have prayed about it. You've sought counsel from others at the church. You perhaps have talked with people like Church Answers and gotten our perspective, which came up in the questions at Church Answers Central on our membership site. So you've gotten those perspectives and you've done everything you can. Well, it is time to move on. Every single leader will face this type of person. Every single leader in every single organization will face this person or persons multiple times. And don't think that it is something that is unique to you and that you're doing something wrong in your leadership. It is absolutely not. It is something that every single leader faces. Pray for them. Seek to develop a relationship with them. Listen to them, but don't let the obstacle absorb your vision and your focus. Ultimately, move forward doing that which is right. As always, we want to thank Belay. Belay is that organization that provides workers for you. They take care of the paperwork, or e-work as it would be. They take care of the payroll. They take care for this person. They take care of everything from the hiring, and in those rare occasions where you have to find someone else, they'll take care of that as well. Everything is taken care of by Belay. We believe in them, and we're the stamp of approval because we've used them at Church Answers from our beginning until today. We continue to use Belay persons, and we have been extraordinarily pleased with the type of people that we have gotten. Once again, remember their ebook, Delegate to Elevate. Incredible book that every leader needs to take the time to read through. You can read through it by going to belaysolutions.com/Tom Rainer, ThomRainer, or you can look in the show notes and click on that link too. So if you're watching me at YouTube, I'd appreciate your subscribing, or your podcast app or YouTube, whatever. Give us a like, a rating, a review, whatever the case may be, to get the word out, especially if it's a good rating or review. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. And let me just mention one thing in closing. One of the ways to move on is to get your church outwardly focused. It's not that much longer before we have our incredible outreach initiative, our incredible evangelistic focus called and it's going to be something that is just absolutely incredible. The Hope Initiative. You can see the link in the show notes, hopeinitiative.com. It will be released shortly. We are in May, and it will be released in June. Once again, thank you as always for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. Thank you for being the type of leader that you are. We'll see you later. Hey, folks, this is a PS to our podcast. We got some exciting stuff that we want to offer you absolutely for free. Sam, when you think about predictive factors in a church's growth, if you take out demographics, what are some things that come to mind? Just two. I mean, don't give me a list of 10. Just 2 or 3 things that come to mind on predictive growth of a church.
Well, evangelism and whether the church is doing it or not.
Bingo.
And then I will add, is it an ongoing evangelism emphasis?
Double bingo. Well. Maybe something about leadership and their commitment to that. So all of the above.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Is the staff, is the lead pastor doing the work themselves?
We have a free download for you, and it's actually a sheet that you can self-score. You answer 20 questions, anywhere from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And we come back and we predict what your growth rate is going to be for the next year in worship attendance. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a good tool. There's a link to that for the attendance predictor. Look in the show notes. You'll absolutely love it. That's cool. We'll see you soon.